Everyone talks about the Batman's money, gadgets, and combat skills. Also his intellect, but never really understand how even these things play out in who he is and how him being him makes these things possible or not. Everyone knows about the death of Bruce's parents and on a baseline scale that it affects him in some type of way, but how bad has this affected the young master Bruce, as Alfred would say? Bruce really loves his city to the point he acts like he owns it. And anything that may seem to tarnish the name or take the name away will surely go down. People judge the city because of the criminals and activities that take place. Gotham does have a very high criminal rate and likely the highest number of street tier villains, be it mutant or not, and he takes it upon himself to keep it as safe as possible. Bruce loves his city so much that he is ready to use millions, if not billions of dollars to build new infrastructures. His love for the city goes deep into his parents' death as he looks forward to the future. But he tells a lie because Bruce dwells constantly in the past and uses the present to sustain his sanity because of what he has around him, like his Bat family, Catwoman, Gotham itself, and the idea of being a superhero for justice to prevail. Challenging his idea of what the city is and the betterment of the city is something Bruce would get angry over. Everything adds up more because his family has been a great contributor to society, just like his great-grandfather who built the Wayne Tower for newcomers into the city, and the building structure was built with safety and comfort intent towards visitors and donating money to firms and the less privileged. Now, understanding the foundation towards Bruce's obsession and love towards Gotham and sees everything as a threat to taking his city, and whatever he doesn't know about Gotham simply does not exist, or he will make sure it doesn't exist so he can have full control over it. This is part of Bruce's character as a dominant Sigma male, a man who loves having control over his investment and property no matter how little he owns in it. He takes the whole thing as his. Let's take the entire narrative of the Court of Owls. Aside Bruce loving the city, anyone who seems to have gone through what Bruce went through but has some act of service towards Gotham automatically can steal from Bruce in his presence and he won't observe or notice it despite his insane detective and mystery solving skills. And this is just a metaphor, but you understand what I mean. Now, what do I mean by all I just said? Let's start from the fact Bruce gets into affairs of everyone big in the city and vice versa. You need to win his votes or he takes the role from you. Bruce does this because, well, maybe the rumors are true of him just being an opportunist to maximize his influence on the city, and Lincoln went through something similar while also getting attacked by the Talon from the Court of Owls, making Bruce totally give in to protecting him. Now, Bruce never accepted the existence of such a group well groomed in his city that he is like a pawn on the chessboard, but this becomes so disturbing that rather with his influence, he didn't know them because they did not want him to know them. And for someone like Batman to be in second place despite his skills, then even the reader should be worried. Lincoln tells him a brief story but tells him he is not paying attention to the obvious but the little ones. And yet Bruce thinks he has totally figured it out after Alfred speaks to him about his great-grandfather Alan Wayne's obsession for the owls who want to end his life. And in 1888, Alan built the Gotham Tower with 13 guardians, but a sixth one, which more like 13 floors and 6 guardians, right? Which protects travelers coming by air, which saved Bruce's life against one of the Talon, who Bruce praised as good and strong. That's why Bruce holding back to hide his identity through combat, because Gotham is full of pretty high IQ people who may have suspected him to be Batman and vice versa, but have no concrete evidence. Even Alfred has said his disguise is a shocking mystery. Either way, Lincoln later would be the obvious sign Bruce was missing, because Lincoln seemed to be on his side and fighting for a better Gotham. Knowing one or two things about the owls and bats, him knowing his father's story with the court of owls as a Wayne who did something marvelous and could gain the full trust of the city. They put Allen out of commission. Knowing the nature of owls, they don't build nests, they dominate, and that's what happened with the hidden flaw of your superstitions that Alan Wayne firmly believed, and it was the best spot for an owl to take over. Aside the fact we are seriously talking about Batman's mental state, which comes from the core of his dedication to the city. How the hell is a little kid so intelligent to investigate and put clues together to actually locate the owl headquarters, just that they weren't there when Bruce went there? And he is indeed fearless and courageous. I mean, he did tell Lincoln that he isn't scared of ghost stories, referring to the owl, and he really did sleep there for a week without any resources for survival. But the issue here is that he spent years investigating beyond what the evidence he gathered could provide, but found nothing which strengthened his beliefs of them not existing. But yet, was Bruce truly not scared? But he keeps doing everything because of the love he has for his parents, especially Martha. And I won't blame his conviction towards their existence for a man who knows the city in and out. To the core differences in the taste of the water and types of natural resources it has in different areas, then how can one group be beyond Batman's scope of vision and understanding? Now, this part of the story really touched me, to see Bruce's real mental scape when actually dragged away from the darkness. And I guess Bane was right. And when we get into the villain part of this video, you will see what I mean by that. And it is the best way for me to actually explain why Bruce doesn't kill. Just follow up with this part of the video and the villain part. Now, Bruce got fucked up. He got beat up, and when I say beat up, and he got placed in a light and dark maze. Was it hard for Bruce to get past there easily? Well, the normal Bruce would, but the issue is that Batman wouldn't, right? He kept running away from the light because it was safe for him in the dark. Everything about Batman is darkness. He was terrified of going into the light to fight because that's something he has never done in years of fighting, unless with the Justice League, and they usually fought in the night or somewhere outside Earth that has no fucking light. Bruce is terrified, like Darkseid's planet. Yeah, you get what I mean. Bruce is terrified simply because Gotham is Bruce and Bruce is Gotham. Gotham functions well in the dark. The dark is what made him Batman because of his parents' death. He didn't even see the face of the killer, which worsens everything for him. The city is his, and he protects the city with his life because it was just as good as protecting his parents. Take away the thing that gives him passion to dress as a jam bat, and then Bruce becomes vulnerable as Batman. And with this, Bruce was in a state of trying to convince the trauma within him that the story is his. He wants to be in control, but he isn't. He wants his city back, but right now he can't have it. He can't be the caped crusader playing hero with a villain mindset. Batman told a story of owls versus bats, but rather than thinking that the bats ran away, they hid in the darkest part awaiting vengeance, which is a sign that Batman can indeed take vengeance. But this isn't new. Before we move on, let me tell you who Bruce is and who Batman is. Bruce basically is a man who can act with the state of emotions, not trying to cover up his human side. He drinks, laughs, loves, and discusses, but he uses the abilities of Batman to fight in the day. He isn't affected with the fact he is wearing a costume with a cause. While Batman basically dwells within the dark, seeking vengeance for his parents' but the nature of Bruce gives him a code not to kill, because once he kills, he has killed as both Bruce and Batman, which means not going back, and that grief of not taking the lives of those who take that of others will be gone, and this man will kill every bad person out there to justify his actions and his satisfaction. Batman uses vengeance, but Bruce keeps him in check, and vice versa. Bruce is all about empowerment, which is why he takes villains to an asylum and not really a prison with the help of Batman, and Bruce can also stay serious with the help of Batman. Justice must prevail, not because it must, but because a man that can outsmart gods shouldn't start killing. It would end well. Now, if you really understood the previous segment of the video, then this part shouldn't be so hard to grasp. We will be using Two-Faces or Two-Face here and Bane for the most part. Earlier, we established that Batman does have vengeful intent, killing intent, and overall a villain mindset, and I explained how he keeps himself in check. I wanted to reference Batman Hush fully in here, which includes the Riddler and the Joker, but I think his relationship with Joker has become too noticeable, and that of the Riddler isn't so noticeable or noticed at all. But all the villains have codependent roles in Bruce's life. As for the Joker, I am sure it was the same day Bruce's parents died that his family got slaughtered, which drove him insane alongside the chemicals. There alone creates a connection of two men who lost something dear to them, but one becomes a giant bat while the other goes insane. But does that mean Batman is sane? No, him and Joker are very much alike and are like best friends. Batman doesn't kill Joker because Joker makes his life fun and hell at the same time. It's like Joker adds to his purpose of being the Batman, and Joker doesn't kill Bruce as well despite knowing his identity and hideouts. Now, as for Riddler just wanted to win against Batman once and he died at the end. But Batman wasn't happy he died and Catwoman was furious. But I think I will cover Batman Hush properly, a very well written story which I will go over and explain his character a bit. Now let's talk about Two-Face. After Bruce's parents died and he did everything in his power to take vengeance but couldn't, mostly because he is a kid, Alfred took him to Arkham Asylum, where Bruce keeps villains. He met a kid named Harvey who was abused by his father every weekend, a child from a wealthy family, but the wealth meant nothing. With no mother and friends but just an abusive father he later killed and was taken captive by the law. Harvey was like a brother, more than best friends with Bruce, and sometimes he wonders if Harvey and him kept in touch, what would Harvey be like? And this changed his life, while Bruce has been looking for a formula to cure him and get his best friend back, his brother. Now let's talk about Bane and Bruce. It is very funny how Bruce and Bane went through the exact same situation mentally, but Bruce sort of had it better. Their parents died in their presence, but Bruce got picked up by Gordon and Bane got picked up by a different person. Both cried looking back, but one was told to forget and one was told to remember. Bruce goes home to a mansion where he can sleep on a comfortable bed, but Bane goes back to a cell where water flows into causing this dude sleepless nights, and he turns it into a training session. Both are scared, but Bane has a lot more to be terrified about. Bruce ate nice meals, Bane ate live fish. If he was lucky for any to swim towards the shore in his direction. Bruce read and Bane questions life. Bruce has equipment to build all around muscle strength and density. Bane has just home workout to get stronger than Bruce. The strength gap reflects itself as Bruce could damage a tree, which is impressive, with a good stance martial art kick, while Bane just corpse stomped a whole ass wall, getting out of the place and still managed to build bigger muscles than Bruce. And both of them swore to stop all criminals. Bane finds his true enemy and same as Bruce, but Bane killed his. Batman got a team of youths and called them his family, while Bane got a mad scientist to give him more strength. And Bruce becomes a symbol for justice, while Bane just became a symbol for vengeance. And both believe they can bring each other down, but Bane says it is about will and endurance. While they fight, it is obvious that hand to hand Bruce is lacking behind because of strength, and Bane makes it known that he isn't like the other villains or like him. Bane lost everything when he had nothing, but Bruce gained a lot with something already. Aside his parents dying, Bruce was never neglected of love from his mother, father, or Alfred. Just that his dad was hardly around. Bruce truly adopted the dark. Bruce traumatized himself by creating an issue where there is none. This dude is more insane than the Joker. While Bane was born from the dark, Bruce thinks the dark is his ally. The dark Bruce sees is Gotham, and Gotham turned out not to be his city, which he thought was his ally. I feel like saying this, well, just listen, I think it's cool. You think the dark is your ally, huh? Commendable. You see, you merely adopted the dark. I was born in it. Did I say that well? That was weird. I thought I practiced this before. Now I want to say it again. You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it. Give me a rating down below. I think I did terribly. Then when I actually was practicing for this, I kept saying this throughout yesterday. If you guys observed something, Bruce is very similar to these villains. He is friends with most of them, and he literally plays dress up to play with them and sends them for mental checkup, and not even a real prison. That is sad. The Bat family consists of all the current Robins except Jason Todd. You have Batwoman, Batgirl, Duke, and Alfred. Batgirl really has high expectations for Bruce, that when he got mind controlled, she firmly believed he was faking it just to show you how strong-minded this man is. But maybe she over-exaggerated, or she's over-exaggerating how mean he is, because Batman isn't mean per se to women. She thought he was just going to blame her, but rather he holds her hand to comfort her, because Bruce has likely blamed himself already. He does that a lot since Jason died by the hands of the Joker, but he loves his parents so much that merely saying Crime Alley or their names can make him have his reasoning back. Beat the living hell out of you, or even just walk away happily. And I like how she's thinking, but this is thrown towards the perspective from Bruce about revenge never healing what is broken, because indeed it doesn't, and Bruce knows that. It is one of the reasons he doesn't kill despite being very vengeful, and when Jim is angry at him, Bruce tells him the same thing: justice and not revenge. He should be careful the path he walks. His relationship with Damian was quite the annoying one, trying to make Damian stray away from revenge and vengeance like his grandfather Ra's al Ghul. Bruce had to beat him a lot of times and save him, but at the same time, Bruce wasn't scared like the rest of the other Robins, right? I mean, you're talking about a kid who could nearly beat Nightwing early in his life, then could kill him as a teenager. Has also exchanged hits with his father. I am sure only Bane can beat him, because he is just as smart as Bruce to be fooled. Dude can use stealth as good as Bruce, because he does catch Bruce off guard a lot. I mean, like father like son. But he's grown up to be just as strong as, if not stronger than Bruce. Also has his sanity intact. Bruce sees Nightwing as his son and vice versa as his father. Nightwing doesn't inherently work under Bruce and was trained to be the next Batman. Nightwing knows Bruce so well that Bruce does accept. Likely aside from Alfred, only Nightwing understands Bruce. Dick's relationship with Bruce is just special. He knows Bruce to the point that every little thing that happens to Bruce, he supports and understands, but sometimes talks back, like telling Bruce he just tries to protect himself from having any human emotions. Duke is just literally a black dude that works for him, but still went through the mental training of seeing if he can be a hero or villain, in which Bruce says the others have done, and his color is the evilest and the most challenging, which suits him. I keep saying it. This dude is anti-hero and has a villain mindset. He says the training will determine if you become a hero or villain. Duke says like Jason, and he says someone else, clearly referring to himself, then goes on to talk about his color. Another thing to support this is the fact Bruce lays emphasis on trying to raise heroes, but Duke says that he is doing it for himself, and Bruce says maybe. Bruce isn't really a hero, rather a villain. Bruce isn't really a hero. Rather, a villain fits him because he has threatened the Justice League, and even villains don't hate him because they can relate with him more than heroes can. People don't trust Bruce, and he doesn't trust himself. Like Dick said, he doesn't want human emotions, but it is quite the opposite because he has too much of that. Bruce has cried a lot. He loves his city because it created his trauma. He's like his trauma bonded to the city and everything that resonates corresponding around it, right? And he's trying to cleanse it. He helps youths to find a means of getting revenge through justice by testing their true intentions, so he knows how to keep up with them. Damien is seen as bad, but his color is green. He is the son of this man. Now imagine what Bruce really is like. As for Alfred, Bruce doesn't trust even Alfred, but he trusts him more than he trusts himself. Alfred loves Bruce as his own, and Bruce sees him as a father. Yet Bruce keeps that boundary between him and his butler. A lot of Bruce's training was sharpened by Alfred himself. Now this panel looked funny to me and maybe to some people because of how Bruce sounded, but in fact he thought he was going to die, and he's really keeping himself together so he won't disappoint his parents. Well, anyone could easily assume he is so tough because of the way he carries himself and is perceived, but Bruce is very vulnerable once you know the right buttons or even button to click, and being scared of the light because he wasn't in control of Gotham, and Gotham wasn't inherently his city, and he wasn't the star per se. This story of Gotham and Gotham Girl struck a nerve because the same situation of Bruce and his parents almost happened to Gotham, the superhero who saved Bruce while he was on top of a plane and was actually prepared to die, and was likely going to die while hoping his death was pleasant enough for his parents to commend his good behavior of saving the city. But Batman stopped these incidents from happening, and he told the boy, "You will be scared for a while, and that's fine. Be scared. Everyone gets scared, but remember, all that means is that you get the chance to fight that fear. Everyone gets the chance to be brave." Gotham and his sister will get a story cover on this channel this week or next week, so look out for that. Bruce shouts at Gotham for killing people, but didn't know his parents had been killed. When he found out, while Gotham holds the man who did it, Bruce tells him that he understands the anger like no other seeing your parents dead, but he can use that anger to make himself a better man. Gotham wants to kill Gotham because he lost his parents, but once again Batman tells him that Gotham is made up of bricks and concrete, and it didn't murder his parents, but he blames himself for not stopping the psycho pirates, and his parents died because he couldn't save them. He says he is Gotham and mostly seems to hate himself for being weak and afraid, for failing over and over and over. This is deep because Batman is usually always scared of losing his city, which builds his identity. has always been scared because of his parents' death and doesn't want others to be killed. He couldn't save Jason and blames himself for every death that takes place there, and to worsen it, he then groomed a killer, at least to him. But what usually keeps him going also is because he is brave. Gotham Girl is his younger sister and has basically gone insane, or more like PTSD from losing all her family members. Bruce then asked what Alfred did to save him when his parents died, and Alfred's reply had me crying, lol. Bruce took off his mask and told her his story, but went deeper by telling her he wasn't so close to his dad and his mom was like his everything. I mean, mothers are meant to have time for their kids more often than less. Bruce, in this moment, hugging her and giving her comfort, is definition of a man with a soft heart and a man looking for strength to truly save others, especially those like him. And at the same time, will beat those like him if he must. Bruce is so bent on saving people, he always risks his life doing so, and if you kill in his presence, then you have an issue with him. Just like him and Alec Holland, the Swamp Thing. Bruce's interaction with Gotham Girl here really touched me and further backs up everything in this video. She asked him if he wishes to be back to normal, and he asked what normal and what is normal. She briefs a normal lifestyle and he agrees he can't do that, just as she says what she thought he would say to her. Bruce smirks, repeating it, and finally she asks if he likes his life, and he says it doesn't matter what I like, and she says does he like being the person who would say such. He says, I am not Batman because I like being Batman. He is Batman because he is Batman. When she asked if his parents would like it, he clearly wasn't happy and didn't reply. This speaks a lot that Bruce has adopted so many morals and codes to contradict his ideal feelings towards heroism that he is numb and stoic. He isn't something he thinks is fun. This is just who he grew to become. He tells her he does what he does so he can be happy, but he isn't. And he doesn't think he can stop. And he tries to be happy, but he fails. And just as I explained earlier, Bruce is scared. He fears what he has seen in Gotham, which the owl really took a toll on him. And if he wasn't scared of that, then he would be truly insane. And he doesn't want to believe he is insane or want to be. But this man is at least halfway nuts. So when Bruce goes to release two criminals who are sort of his friends to help him assault Bane, he sees them kiss because they are in love, and Punchy, the guy, or let's just call him Punch, the guy who, not like he punched, but like the name of the guy is Punch, so Punch, the guy who went to get his girlfriend really went the extra amount to do so. And Bruce recognizes this, in which he says to himself, it is impressive what you have done to be with her, what you are willing to do to be with her. And this rings a bell about the woman he does indeed love, in which we all know she goes by the name Selina, the Catwoman. Bat and Cat clearly love each other, but Cat won't stop stealing and Bat won't arrest her. And they can't date because of who they are, but still they tease each other about running and catching, falling and catching, but who they are gets in the way of what they want for themselves. She keeps stealing in his presence, and most times he can't do anything about it. Villains keep popping up and she helps him kick their asses, as he basically helps her to steal, but none of these can stop a cat and a bat from making out on the rooftop. But this must be the most emotional and vulnerable we ever see this man here. And I love this panel so much. When we met Catwoman and stopped her from stealing a diamond. When he met Catwoman and stopped her from stealing a diamond. He bought it and later uses it to propose, but at the same time Batman saying he needed the ring because he needed her and needs her in his life, right? This is someone that claims he doesn't need help and tells this to the most important people in his life straight up. Just shows how much he loves her to even tell her that he is scared. Bruce loves her so much, even while Wonder Woman tries to hit on him so much, with the atmosphere and tension so high as a man and woman are alone, which can spark something, especially for the polygamous nature of a man. The fact that he is his wife to be, that she is his wife to be, he doesn't fall victim to this, saying they can't do anything, and says he loves and misses his fiancée. This is where I will stop for now, but I will release shorter videos going over their relationship story and some other stuff. There'll be videos every day of the week, man. Bruce is indeed one of the best written fictional characters. To me, he beats Superman and Spider-Man to it, probably. Well, if you found this video informative, please hit like, share, comment, subscribe. Go watch my Moon Knight video and be expecting a Batman versus Moon Knight video and so many other content. Peace.